about the anti-fragile mindset in fly casting, or the attitude behind how you cast and why you cast and how much you are willing to commit to your casting as well. Because learning how to cast is not exactly that difficult, but what is difficult is to keep the shit together when it's getting tough, when it gets windy, and when it gets tight, and when the fish are rising, and when it's exciting, and also when one is tired. These are the areas that interest me. Like, the basic casting is just the basic casting, but where I dig in is where that fails, and why that anti-fragile mindset is, in my opinion, much better to learn and to deal with all kinds of situations in lives, and better to help your mind to open and expand in all cases. The anti-fragile mindset of my fly fishing school goes like this. Imagine you had a classroom and a top view on it. In the classic teachings, you have the teacher in the front telling the class what to do. In the first row, you have the do-gooders. In the second row, you have the average people. And in the last row, you have the freaks and the people who don't pay attention and the people who don't give a fish and go fishing all the time. That's why these people in the last rows always come up with the latest and newest trends in fishing. But they usually get ignored from the teacher in the front, who is telling the rest how and why to do it. Now, if you remember the times when you went to school, the teacher was probably already teaching stuff that you either didn't need then, nor now, or that was already outdated. Is that possible? And this is still how the classic teachings work, and the system how the teachings work there is also related to what is called negative reinforcement. The teacher there stands in the front, draws his philosophy on the blackboard, and tells the other people what to do and what not to do. And this is what we're going to change, or what I have changed in the anti-fragile classroom with my, what I call, the last bench philosophy. And what we do here is we swap places. The freaks in the last row go to the front and teach the rest. They all swap the places, and the teacher goes in the back, sits in the back, shuts the fish up, and listens and watches and learns. The teacher's job is not to teach the shit everybody knows already, especially the do-gooders. The teacher's job in an anti-fragile classroom is just to keep a moral level of genuinity, or kind of a framework. And the teacher's job is to learn himself from the freaks, because that is where the new stuff is coming from. And the freaks from the last row, who are now in the front teaching the rest, they show very obviously where the problems really are. And remember, the first principle of positive reinforcement fly casting was Fehler sind Helfer. The faults are our helpers. Go back in the episode, I put your picture in here, and watch that if you want to know more about the 3 principles of positive reinforcement fly casting, which are Fehler sind Helfer, faults are our mistakes are our helpers. Number 1. 2 is look deep into nature. And number 3 is make it play but scientific. That is the job of the teacher. The teacher in the back has to sort the play rules, make it playful and scientific and universally applicable, and his job is to evaluate the game and to learn and to develop it out of that. An anti-fragile mindset is also the mindset of a 4-year-old kid at play, if you so want. That 4-year-old kid in play is at all times in sort of a flow state that allows him to take in whatever it takes, and also to be brutally honest and to speak up about whatever there is, feelings, problems, everything, anything. This is how the anti-fragile mindset and the anti-fragile classroom, together with the philosophy of the last bench in Michael Riepol's fly fishing school, works. That ensures that the teacher himself or herself never stops learning. And that way, there is always a kind of a development there, and these forms of learning are called triple loop learning. By the way, this is how AI intelligence artificially works, is trained. So if you think of the anti-fragile classroom as a radio station, the classic teachings would just have a radio broadcaster here and a listener there, and they tell the listener whatever they say. The anti-fragile classroom radio station would have the listeners making the broadcast to other listeners, so there's a permanent feedback, and those listeners would be integrated and also challenged by doing the work of the broadcast themselves. This way, it is feedback time in every direction, and everybody learns the most out of this learning journey. And what you want to be looking for if you want to develop in this sport is to become a perpetual learner, if you so want. You have to train yourself with the ability to want to learn. Now, Grego called it, I only have to light a spark in you to light that fire. Once that fire is going, you have to kindle that fire. You have to want to learn to learn. And at the beginning, this takes a bit of effort and confusion, similar to muscle training, resistance training, or something that will, like when you go on the exercises of the positive reinforcement flycasting training, fixed line anchor, the rattle trigger, whichever, the bottle, pendulum, whatever you take, the ribbons, and many more to come, by the way. I can't go in all of them now. But once you work with these exercises, you will see the self-learning is very effective, but it also takes a little bit of effort, because you're not consuming information that is chewed up from somewhere, but because you are processing the information. What you're doing there gives you the direct feedback, and that makes you process the information. And this is why that anti-fragile attitude and that playful approach with the same mindset is much more effective, and on one side playful, but on the other side also brutally honest. And the fixed line anchor, for example, if you go at it and practice a little bit, you'll see it for yourself. If you're not in a rhythm and a cadence, even if you make the big cast, but you also see the positive side of it. So it's a personal natural fly casting trainer, if you so will. And the tools of that positive reinforcement fly casting training, they put the things in the right order, because a big problem in fly casting is that your eyes are not showing you the right order. Can you remember the tree? Close your eyes for a minute and imagine a tree. Now, did you see the root of that tree when you did you see the root of that tree when you were imagining it? That root is what makes that tree anti-fragile and stable. I'm talking a lot about this anti-fragility here, And I want to give you, for the end of that episode here, a little bit of a closer explanation and insight into what anti-fragility really means. Apart from that, you've seen this example now with the classroom anyway, the anti-fragile classroom and the philosophy of the last bench, the last row. Anti-fragile are things that gain from disorder. That means the more they get disturbed, the better they start to learn and to work. Cold casting, aka Wave Spey, for example, is such an anti-fragile system. I explain you that on another day when it's really windy. Let me give you another anti-fragile example of another anti-fragile system, and that is water. You cannot destroy water, and no matter what you do to it, its energy only gets bigger if you do something to it, and rarely less. So, for example, there's a puddle of water sitting there, you smash in it, that water splashes out and it gains through that disturbance, through that disorder, energy and so on. So this is an example for anti-fragility. Another example of anti-fragility would be, for example, I don't have the English word for it, the German word would be the Urwald. Is it the primeval or so forest? Like the forests in the rainforests, for example, the intact a couple hundreds or thousands of year old forest, for example. If a tree falls in that forest, so many other trees gain through that the forest itself only grows even more and better out of it. And that tree that fell, that is also nurturing the other trees, and so on and so on. So the big difference between anti-fragility and resilience is that resilience is always like rowing against the stream, like against the current, rowing against the current. So you're always resisting something. Anti-fragility means to go with the flow and to bend to whatever the moment brings, and to accept the reality and the science behind certain concepts in nature. Because apart from faults are our helpers, principle number 1 of PRFC, principle number 2 is look deep in nature. And principle number 3 is make it play and scientific. Today I have no exercise for you because the weather and the days is bad. The weather is very bad and the days are very short and dark at the moment. But as soon as we get a bit of better conditions, we go out again and I show you more exercises of the PRFC, Positive Reinforcement Flycasting program, and also talk more about controlling the cast and becoming a happy caster with the dream outcome you were ever always looking for. I'm very convinced, my friends, that with this casting program here, you can reach the level of a fly casting instructor within 3 months with a couple hours training. Get in contact if you want to know more, and please do not forget to like and to subscribe to the channel and to hit the notification bell, and also that we don't own the water, but the water owns us.